I think we get a more fair comparison when we compare the 28th year of the WNBA, which is 2025, to the 28th year of the NBA, which was 1977. When you factor in the amount of games that they are playing, you're getting $102,000 divided by 44 games, and that's $2,300 a game versus $130,000 over a stretch of 82 games, which was $1,585 a game. The WNBA players don't want to get paid as much as the men do. They don't think they should get paid as much as the men do. I think some of them get taken out of context because they're just speaking candidly on interviews or whatnot, but they don't expect that, right? Their issue is the revenue split, right? The revenue split is the issue that the WNBA players have and what they're trying to fix in the CBA, because from my very small understanding, there's a particular number it has to hit. That number has to be 20% more than last year's number in terms of revenue. And then off of that is when they get the 50% split.
The NBA, for example, gives its players 50% of all basketball-related revenues. For the WNBA, it works very differently. It only shares half of what is called incremental revenue. Basically, once it reaches its preset revenue target, and it has to be 20% more than the year prior, only then do the players get half of that incremental income. Let's say the WNBA made its revenue target $1 million in 2023. It would have to make at least 1.2 in 2024, 20% more. If it does, only that $200,000 is split with the players. These are made-up numbers, of course, since the revenue target is undisclosed. Tell me why the revenue target or this unique sort of structure was set up to begin with.
Yeah, we were just surviving back then. We had no ability to, given the losses. We had low attendance. We didn't have a lot of merch sales. We didn't have a lot of viewership. We didn't have a media deal worthy of what we're going to have now in 26 and beyond. So it's all just a business model.
And I understand them wanting to, and I've heard certain wording where they're saying they want to get a more fair split, right? Maybe not necessarily the 50% split that the men have in the NBA, but a more fair split. The other side of this is this league has never turned a profit. This league, since its inception in 1997, has never turned a profit. The reports last year is that the WNBA made $200 million in revenue, but lost $40 to $50 million.
But Smith says it's important not to compare the WNBA with the NBA, salaries or otherwise. They are inherently different products, she says.
The lifespan of the leagues, the number of teams, the number of athletes, the broadcast deals. It's just a different moment in time. In fact, when you do rewind to where the NBA was at the same moment in time for the W, they're more comparable. And so I think it's important to take note of that and to be aggressive, but charge our own path forward. That also doesn't mean we have to wait for things, but it does mean that we need time to grow.
I think we get a more fair comparison when we compare the 28th year of the WNBA, which is 2025, to the 28th year of the NBA, which was 1977. And in 1977, the average annual salary of an NBA player was $130,000. The average salary of a WNBA player in 2025 is $102,000. Right? Obviously, 130 is more than 102. But what if you factor in the amount of games that they play? When you factor in the amount of games that they are playing, you're getting $102,000 divided by 44 games, and that's $2,300 a game versus $130,000 over a stretch of 82 games, which was $1,585 a game. And to your point, Tulip Plays, that boom happened in that decade after, from 1977 to 1989 was when we saw the boom of average annual salaries go from 130,000 to a little bit over $500,000 on average for players. And I was going to get to that. Inflation does matter. Inflation does matter. But like I said, that is a owner that just invested into this league that's saying you have to compare it to the same time frame. Granted, inflation matters, but I guess the point is it took the NBA a lot of time. It took 78 years for the NBA to get to $300 million contracts. Right? 78 years to get these $250, $300 million contracts compared to the 28th year of the WNBA. Now, like what the owner of the Valkyries there said, obviously you're not going to sit there and wait 50 years to get to that same point, right? The idea is we have more resources and more information. We can get to that number sooner, but the reality is it's going to take time. And what we're seeing with the NBA right now, right, with all of these balloon contracts, what did we just see the Boston Celtics do? They had to unload a bunch of contracts. The NBA, I think, is in a spot where they could potentially be paying players too much right now, and they're going to have a hard time affording some of these contracts. Right? I think that's the other side that the NBA is currently dealing with right now. And I think for the WNBA, they're obviously growing. They need to get their cut, but there needs to be a balance where they get their cut, but the WNBA still needs to be able to keep growing. We're also in a time where the WNBA is dealing with they're learning how to deal with the growth of the league right now also, right? And I think security for these women, the protection and the security of these women needs to be priority, right? Dollars, dollars are going to go to that practice facilities, right? Like some of these things need to also get prioritized along with their contracts, in my opinion. I think we're also seeing a shift in the way that the WNBA is getting marketed, right? I think I mentioned this earlier. For a long time, I think a lot of these women, and I think this might be a thing for women in sports in general, where I want you to respect me for my talent and my skills and my performance in the sport, not for my appearance, right? And so I think because of that, it was a lot more, even if, whatever their sexuality was, right, in the early WNBA, I think they were still positioning themselves to be not so feminine for everyone to see because they wanted to get respected for the game. I think with Angel Reese and with all of these other women now stepping out with their outfits, I think we're seeing that being feminine is obviously marketable because women can relate to it. I think for a long time, there was this notion that we gotta market this to men, when that's not the WNBA's problem. Their problem is they need to market this game to women. The same way men will go to their girl and be like, I'm going to bring you to the game because we got to go to the next game. They need to make this marketable to the point where the women are bringing their boyfriend to the game. And that's how the men get into the game, right? Instead of the other way around. And I think with the stud buds, with all of the outfits, with Angel Reese, with all of these women creating content, making themselves more personable, I think it'll help grow this league a lot more. I think they need to change some of their merchandise, right? Like for example, in tennis, the women aren't wearing shorts like the men are. They got the skirts on, and I'm not saying the women need to be wearing skirts on the court. Please don't think I'm saying that. But the merchandise that they're selling so that the girls can come to the game, it doesn't necessarily have to be a jersey. Like they need to change up some of the merch and not just stick to the same merch that the men have, right? Like the women can operate and you can have cardigans, like you can have, like, you know what I'm trying to say? You can have scarves, like you could sell other things that women will wear that aren't a jersey or a hoodie or sweatpants. They'll rock that too, but they need to open this up to where you get more creative, like the jersey skirt, just something different. And I think they're slowly figuring that out, and I think it'll help grow this league. So like I said, the 50-year gap is gonna get smaller because I think some of these women are opening up these doors. They can literally go as far as makeup to LMAO. Like women will buy an Angel Reese blush or eyeliner. No, facts, right? Like all of that is open to women that men just, like, you know what I'm saying? So being creative with these brand deals, with these sponsorships, I think I think they are on their way, right? I will say Tulip Plays, like I just said earlier, we could look back on the NBA and say from 1977 to 1987, the average went from 130 to 250, right? We're living in this in real time, right? And day to day, and I know it's gotta feel like forever, especially when you're fighting for something that you truly believe in. But like I said, it is going to take time. I agree. Obviously, a healthy bump over these new deals. But we're starting to see it. I think the $28 million deal to Caitlin Clark was obviously a huge step in the right direction.